was a man with us some other time. He was a dark man. I was looking through the rearview mirror and I'd see him just sitting there grinning at me. I thought I could outrun him. Can't outrun the dark man.
My name is Stephen King.
Welcome to Filmstrip and our reviews of selected works of Stephen King featuring Nick.
Being hijacked by a bunch of government sons of bitches in spacesuits does that to me every time.
And Jay.
I can hear! I can talk!
These podcasts will be spoiler-filled and contain in-depth discussions of the plots, characters, and themes.
We got to get started. Time's short.
All content used or discussed in this podcast is the property of the respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504(c)(2), Title 17.
I'm going to scare the hell out of you.
Welcome to Filmstrip. I'm Jay.
And I'm the righteous man, Nick.
And this is our review of Stephen King's The Stand, Parts 3 and 4, The Betrayal and The Stand, starring everybody from last time, directed by Mick Garrett-Still, and of course developed by Stephen King for the miniseries in 1994. Now, we broke this one up into two pieces because we wanted to talk about the second half of it, separate from the first, and we both surmised that the first two parts of this were almost 95% just set up for everything that is to come. And so now we're here for, I guess, what is to come, Nick. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I think before we get into it, though, we got to do the plot, and then we can just jump right headlong into this thing. So we catch up with everybody still traveling across the country, at least Stu's group still traveling across the country, and they eventually make their way to Boulder, Colorado, and meet up with Nick and Tom and Larry and others, and Harold is there, and there's a lot of tension growing between him and Stu because, of course, Harold and Fran are starting to hit it off and all this stuff, and initially all is okay in Boulder, but Fran, of course, discovers she's pregnant, and it causes a lot of anxiety because she's, not sure the child's going to be immune to superflu and all that stuff, and of course, Harold's becoming more and more distant, and sensing a chink in the armor, Flag sends Nadine, his concubine, if you will, to seduce Harold so that he can kind of have an insider on his team. And meanwhile, the Boulder group has sent its own people, Tom Cullen and another girl, to be the insiders in Flag's group. So both sides are committing espionage. And Harold ultimately betrays the group, sets off a bomb, kills several people, including Nick, at the end of Part 3. And then Part 4 begins with Mother Abigail, who is the spiritual center of things in Boulder, convinced she's fallen into the sin of pride and leaves town to walk in the wilderness. She returns and, of course, is very sick, but before passing away, she tells Stu, Larry, and Glenn, and Ralph that they have got to travel to Las Vegas to make a stand against Randall Flagg. And with winter fast approaching, they set out on their quest, and while crossing a washed-out road, Stu breaks his leg and is forced to stay behind. While the other three continue, Larry, Glenn, Ralph are soon captured by forces, and Glenn's executed in prison, while Larry and Ralph are set to be drawn and quartered among a raucous crowd in Vegas. And just as they're about to be tortured to death, to the delight of Flagg's acolytes, the trash can man shows up dragging a nuclear weapon behind him on a four-wheeler. Great gas mileage on those things. And, of course, all hell's about to break loose. Flagg transforms into some kind of bat, demon, crow thing, flies off, and a spectral hand reaches down, detonates the bomb, destroys Las Vegas, killing all of Flagg's supporters and supposedly him. Stu is ultimately rescued by Tom and taken to heal in a nearby cabin as winter sets in. They eventually make it back to Boulder, and of course, being reunited with Franny, she gives birth to a healthy baby daughter that they name in honor of Mother Abigail, and the show closes with the idea of, can we get it right this time as humanity? And the ultimate answer is, well, we don't know. And that's really how it ends. And we're going to talk a lot about that ending, but let's talk about just the picking up where we left off here, Nick. I messaged you offline about this, and it was something I had forgotten about the pacing of this thing. It felt like to me when we pick up in Part 3 here that I was missing something. Like I thought, did I skip a chapter somewhere along the way? Does it feel that way to you that at least the first 30 minutes of the Part 3 here, I feel like I am behind or out of the loop on what is going on?
Yeah, it's a real fast pickup from where it ended. I mean, it almost seems like a couple of weeks or days or weeks have gone by, and we're just kind of playing catch up with all the characters. I mean, chances are they're probably all just sitting around having barbecues and, you know, kind of feeling good and, you know, being over dramatic about everything. But yeah, I kind of agree that it kind of like felt like we just kind of like maybe skipped like 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like that there's just a real truncated part to all of this, and I don't know where that comes from or why, and I don't remember the book being that way. Now, tell me if I'm wrong, and it was, but I don't recall the book being so, again, just kind of throwing us in the middle of it like that.
No, everything was set up. Everything was, you were taken along a journey from beginning to end, so no, there really wasn't anything where it kind of like moved past a couple weeks and threw you back into the story, kind of like part 3 did.
I mean, it does feel like I'm watching a television show and I've missed a couple episodes. You know, I mean, that's because everything is just sort of, I don't know, it feels different, but the whole feel of the thing is different now too. Like there's a different quality and pace to the third and the fourth parts of this compared to the first and the second. And some of it can be the location, but it's also the way everybody acts. Like Gary Sinise is a lot more forceful now than he was in those first parts. Like, I never took Stu Redman as this natural-born leader. I took him as just this good old boy that could get by. And he's much more of an active leader role in this back half of the story, if you will.
Do you think maybe it's because he's now going to learn he's a father? That maybe he feels like he has to take a little bit more of a... He's got to take a little bit more of a stand here, Jay.
Well, you know, here's the thing, though, and that's one of the things in the book, and they don't make it totally clear in this, but I think they're alluding that he is the father of Fran's baby. But in the book, that's not it.
No,
she's pregnant from the get-go.
Yeah, and, she's pregnant by her boyfriend in the book. This miniseries, I think it makes it pretty clear that he is the father. I mean, probably one of the worst sex scenes ever was shown.
Oh, by the river.
Oh my gosh, that was bad. It was like, I don't know if you ever watched Family Guy, but they had like something on there where it was they're talking about like how like censorship TV and how there's going to be like a sex scene or something like that, and how like the way it has to be censored. It's like, yeah, you can't have any thrusting, any movement. You just have to stand there, and that's exactly what it is. It's like she sits on his lap, and it's like they're just sitting there kissing, and it's like you can kind of see what they're trying to do, and then like Harold's like looking at him like a voyeur. But it's like, my God, is that a bad scene? Because it's like, dude.
Well, there's two thoughts about that. One, in the book, it's much more detailed, of course, and Harold does catch them doing that. But and I know you can't do that on television and stuff. But
she still had her pants on. I don't know how it worked.
The problem I'm having with it is that Molly Ringwald and Gary Sinise have absolutely no chemistry together. And we talked about that last time, but it's really evident here. Like, they just do not go together.
I put it on her because she is abysmal throughout this whole thing, and you didn't think she could get worse, but she does. She somehow found out how to get worse in parts 3 and 4, and gosh, she has a big mouth too. I mean, every like reaction she has, she's like gaping her mouth open as wide as she can, like, oh my God. And she's like got to show teeth like every time. When she talks, like her lips are completely curled up like an alien. I mean, it's...
Well, that's all she knows how to do, though. I mean, that's Molly Ringwald's performances. And in the right film, that works. The problem here is she cannot carry this. Like, the other females that get featured a little bit more this time around, Nadine, for one, Dana, the other one, much more compelling performance.
Well, definitely, yeah. Because the thing is, Molly Ringwald always, like I said in the first part, she is the habitual, girl that's in love with someone that she cannot get. She's not the head cheerleader. She's the girl volunteering at the library or something. I mean, and the whole like plot of her in here is that she's supposed to be like this girl that everybody's kind of going after. Like Harold's like obsessed with her, and then this like new guy comes in and he also becomes obsessed with her. She is not that type of actress. I mean, you need someone that's like a, I don't even know who, like a, I don't know.
She is the girl, the quintessential girl next door.
Yeah.
And that is not the character, though. Fran is a striking woman. Actually, and I'll say this now, and she's not much of a looker, but Laura San Giacomo can play that. Mm-hmm. She would have been a better Fran. And she's good as Nadine, but she would have been better as Fran, and they could have had anybody, whore it up.
I'm thinking like mid-90s, like someone like maybe like Jennifer Aniston back then would have played the role a lot better. Because, like an attractive girl, they're going after. I'm not saying that Molly Ringwald's ugly. She's just not that girl that everybody's going to like. She enters the room and everybody drops what they're doing and looks at her. She's
not the girl that someone will turn their life over to Satan and bomb people for. Okay? And that's basically what happens.
Yeah.
And that is she's just not that. That's not how she works. And I think you're right to lay a lot of it on her, but I'm going to tell you, Gary Sinise is not the kind of leading man where he can be a forceful person. He's always better when he's subtle, and it's bad in here. You know who actually is good in the second half of this, who I thought was just awful in the first half, is Bill Funderburk, who plays Tom Cullen. He is so much more interesting the second time around.
Oh, he's the smartest character throughout this whole series. I'm not trying to be mean or trying to be funny. I am dead serious. He is the smartest guy in this entire series. He is.
Well, you think about it. He's what's the one thing that is missing from this that we always get in Stephen King films? That childlike innocence that can see through all the bullshit and sort of learns to tackle the evil. And in a way, that's what Tom Cullen is, because he is, a stunted, in learning or whatever. He's like a big kid, but in the same way that a kid can be cagey, like the kids in It and stuff like that, he's incredibly resourceful. And he remembers when they tell him, you come back when the moon is full. He is really good at hiding the fact that he is basically being a spy, even after they figure it out. And he gets away before anybody can do anything about it. I mean, I'm with you. He's the smartest character in the second half of this by far. And he's really fun to watch. And they take away, they give him some real stuff to deal with. They take away Nick from him, and he has that whole great scene where he's like, I can't even remember what he looks like anymore, and he has that vision of him or whatever, but it's, he's coming to grips with things in a way that a child would, and that's what makes him so much more interesting.
Well, we've always said too throughout a lot of the Stephen King things is that the children are always the smartest characters in the stories.
Right.
And I think that's almost kind of the case here. I mean, he's not smart in the way that you can put him down and have him do trigonometry, but I think he's got this innocent smarts to him where it's he's going to get through stuff because he's you give him a mission, you give him a duty, and he's going to do it until it's done.
Right. He's resourceful. He's a kid doing a chore.
Exactly. So, yeah, I mean, when they, I think, he does a great job. And it's almost like this actor, too. I mean, he's always in those roles, isn't he? I mean, you even look at Dauber and stuff in Coach. I mean, I think when the first season he actually played a football player, and then throughout it's kind of he's the brain dead football player that's now going to be a coach or something like that. And he's even Patrick on SpongeBob. He always plays the slow, dim-witted character, and he does a great job of it. I will say that out of all the characters here and all the actors here, I enjoyed him the most, and I thought he was annoying as hell in the first two, but here I actually kind of like him.
Well, then, yeah, I'm with you. MOON spells good work, Tom, because I thought he was really good.
He's got fantastic hair, too. I just want to throw that out there. He's got,
that bowl.
Yeah, just that bowl cut, and it's just it's a perfect head of hair. I mean, it's not too thin, not too thick. Very good. So.
It's very Midwest, that's for sure. So.
I'm gonna style my hair after him after this.
There you go. You should go for that. I think it would work for you. Well, I mean, we have a difference in our two groups here, big time. And let's talk about the group in Boulder just as all together. Everybody rallies around Mother Abigail, and we talked about last time what biblical character she is the allegory for, and I think it's dead clear here that she's supposed to be Moses.
Nope, Jesus.
All the way through. Really? I disagree.
Dude, she lost. She won and spent 40 days in the desert like Jesus did.
Okay, can I tell you why I think it's Moses? Moses goes through the same crisis of faith she does here. He loses his way and out of pride commits sin with the children of Israel, and his punishment for that is, their punishment is they have to walk in the wilderness, and his punishment is he'll never get to see the land of Canaan. He never gets to go into what was promised. He gets to see it, but he doesn't get to be a part of it anymore because of that sinful pride. Jesus didn't have sinful pride. Moses did. And that's why I think she is much more of a Moses figure than a Jesus figure here this time around. Plus, we don't get to see anything of what happens to her in the desert. The thing about Jesus going into the desert is there's a temptation.
I mean, you got Jesus, you got a 30-year-old guy going out there walking around. I mean, you got her. It's she probably pretty much walked around the block. I don't think she could have made it that far. She probably got temptations from the mailbox, you know.
What exactly set her off as to I have given into this sinful? What did she do?
Well,
I didn't see she had done anything bad.
They didn't. I read between the lines here, and you got the old guy, the teacher with the dog with the golden retriever.
Yeah, Glenn. Yeah,
and I think he was supposed to be representing what she was becoming, because you heard all through part 2 and even a little bit of part 3 that he was real hesitant on seeing her, because he's just like he was really looking at kind of like an analytical perspective where he was like, well. Yeah,
he was the academic.
Who is this lady? You know, we're supposed to go there and all of a sudden treat her like a deity and stuff like that. I mean, he's like, he didn't believe in the hype. You know what I'm saying? And I think in a way that was actually kind of representing who she was, because everybody was going there praising down to her, walking into this town, walking into her house, and everybody's got to go and talk to her and almost get like a blessing from her, you know? And I think that
this weird
I think that
moment.
she was almost like, she fell into the hype that she was. That I think that she was granted this position by God in this movie, and that she started to think that she was God.
You make an interesting point there, and I was going to talk about that too. There is this whole like ceremony where people gather at her steps and they come up to kiss her hand. It's almost like the Pope and stuff like that. And like when Nadine shows up, Larry's going over there to talk to her, and Stu stops him like, no. And it's almost like he's saying, you don't interrupt the kissing of Mother Abigail's hand moment. And I was like, what is the big deal with this woman? She hasn't gotten up and prophesied in front of anybody. She's barely even talked to anybody.
It didn't start with her. It started with the dreams, and then everybody thought that she was like some type of deity. So when they go there, they're treating her like this, and she started kind of falling into it. Started like, you know, what she should have done is when they're coming up here, is like, no, you guys don't need to come up here and say, you know, go in the back and have some biscuits or something, you know. Don't come up here and look for my blessing and stuff like that. I think she was starting to give people like the blessing, the yay or the nay with Nadine's case. I think that's when she kind of fell into this whole like, you know, trap maybe set by God or something like that.
Simple
where it's
pride.
like, hey, you know what, you're not the person to lead them because you're falling into your own hype here.
Oh, that's interesting. It's the
thing is they treat it poorly though, man. I mean, a better story would have shown her actually admitting it.
Here's the thing:
like, I mean, you have the scene where she's praying on the bed and she's kind of admitting it to herself that, you know, hey, I'm not the person who, I'm not acting the way I should. But I think they should have like as you said, kind of like maybe went with her journey a little bit more instead of just having her disappear for a little bit.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is everything goes bad in Boulder, and Randall Flagg doesn't even have to do it.
Does anybody in the story even
I don't know,
do
an
anything?
interesting
I mean, let's be honest here.
Well, let's before we dissect all that, though, let's talk about this, because that's an interesting trope that you find sometimes in these large epic stories, is that it always seems like, oh, the bad guys are going to come get us, and everybody gets real paranoid about that, and it's all about the arming up for it and stuff. And what really starts to screw everything up is just people being themselves. Like, Flagg doesn't even have to do anything to infiltrate them. It's only after he learns there are spies in his own camp that he sends Nadine after Harold. You know, and stuff like that. So they were destroying themselves and screwing it all up before he even bothered with any of them. That's the funny thing. And I mean, they're starting to elect this council, and there's that whole bit, which, God, that went on forever. And the whole let's sing the national anthem. I actually sat there and said to myself, I was like, oh, they're actually going to sing the whole thing.
Well, they got an hour and a half to take
and I mean, I'm not against the national anthem.
Something. I mean, heaven forbid actually have a bit filled up with actually something happening.
Well, can I just say this too? Part 3 of all of these feels like the most filler of anything. It's like they really stretched this out. I'm like, this could have been 3 parts, not 4. I know the book's 1,000,000 pages long, but they're skipping so much anyway.
Well, we talked about
there was no need to do.
We talked about the first 2 parts were set
that seemed like a poor
choice. 3 is even more set up. I mean, it's you got what, each of these are an hour and a half. You got 4.5 hours of setup at this point, and. Yeah, I mean, you're talking like even like the national anthem thing and everything. It's just like, I don't know, man. Maybe it's just my own cynicism coming through, but like everything as far as even like the first 3 parts, it just come off so hokey and so just like Sesame Street, everybody get along, kissy stuff with like this Boulder crap. Well,
it is, and that's the thing. The book does not feel that way at all.
It's
schmaltzy,
man.
Much
it's
darker,
schmaltzy. Everything is.
But that's the thing that makes no sense to me is it's not like somebody came along and hacked the book up. Stephen King hacked it up. And now I'm going to start getting into a larger discussion that we'll have at the end of this episode. But this is a problem I have with Stephen King, particularly when his fingers are dug deep into whatever's being adapted. Is he turns it into this Steven Spielberg Saturday afternoon special all the time, and it just feels so.
It's almost like you ever seen the Twilight Zone movie, Steven Spielberg's segment with it's like that where it's just like this over goody Americana crap. And that's just the way everything felt like so far. Like, even like when Mother Abigail disappeared, like, she's gone. Everybody embraces in the middle. Like I said, you're questioning me. It's like, dude, this is exactly why I'd be like, screw you guys, I'm going to Vegas. Because I could not deal with this stuff. I'd be puking. I mean, this is just like chewed up, vomited out Fruit Loops. I mean, it's just too much of it here. And it's like I said, the American anthem, everybody embracing, even like when they're trying to choose like who the committee is, like this is who Mother Abigail like suggested, and then like Harold stands up and like, I think that we should just accept who she wants to be, and everybody gives him a round of applause. It's like, man, it's hokey. It's so hokey right here, and everything, even the music cues and just this lovey-dovey crap. I don't know. It was really rubbing me the wrong way because we'd both seen like post-apocalyptic movies and everything like that. And we've seen like really good ones. We've seen really bad ones. I've never seen something so far into like the Saturday morning type, behavior of characters before. It's borderline ridiculous how most of these people are acting.
Well, the big, and you've hit on a problem here, and the big problem with this, and I think it's part of what you said Mother Abigail's sin is that she realized she fell into her own hype. I think this movie and this story, because it is so well revered, and for a good reason, the book is excellent. I'll say right now, if you've never read a Stephen King book, it's a challenge, but if you can get through it, it's fantastic. Okay, it may be.
They consider it to be his opus.
It's certainly. I mean, it is a magnum opus. It is, but this thing is a terrible recount of it. It is bad. It's like watching. I'm trying to think about something I can equate it to. I used to really be big into songwriters and watching the songwriters that wrote hit songs for other artists perform those tunes. Like, I used to think that was so cool until I really watched some of them do it, and I realized, geez, there's a reason you're not the artist. Like, you just start to realize that, like, when you're too married to your own crap, and it gets so stuck up its own ass that you can't broaden out and be interesting anymore. Like, this whole miniseries operates on this premise of, this is really big, this is really important, and it's so damn important, we're going to shove it in your face how important it is all the time, and we're going to do all this over-the-top, national anthem tinge stuff that's supposed to draw on the heartstrings, but all it does is make me hate every character more. Like, they're not developing anybody.
No, there's no character development at all. The only person who's had any bit of development is Harold.
No.
And here's the thing that kind of drives me nuts is there's no gray at all in this whole entire series. There's no shades of gray. You got the people in Boulder, and they are goody two shoes, and then you got the people in Vegas, and they are bad. They're evil. They're bikers. They're girls that are barely dressing anything. They're all wearing lingerie or see-through clothing. I mean, it's like there's no shades of gray.
Or they're
exactly. And it's just like there's no tension at all within Boulder, and there's no tension at all within Vegas. I mean, it's just like,
and they try to play it though. There's one of Lloyd's guys that's like, I'm thinking about bugging out, and Lloyd's like, no, I'm going to stay. And that whole conversation they have, I'm like, no, you're both just milquetoast bored.
Exactly.
That's why you should both be shot right now on the street. Like, I don't buy that at all. There's supposed to be all this tension, and there's not. Like, there's about 3 minutes of tension in this is when you're starting to wonder, what is Harold going to do after Nadine shows up? What is his plot? And then you see him building the bomb, and it's like, well, they spoiled that. Like, I would have been better off if they had never let us know what he was
There's a segment I do like, though, and let's back up a little bit. I do like Nadine's character a lot. I think that she and Harold, I'll take it back, Nadine has a very good arc, too.
Yeah, she does. And I will say now, a lot of that is Laura San Giacomo.
Oh, she is. She's excellent
in that. Really good in that role of sort of self-destructing. She reminded me of, or it reminded me of, a performance. The movie The Devil's Advocate is a mess, but Charlize Theron is brilliant in that because she just goes into complete self-destruction, and it's the same thing Larson Giacomo does.
What I like about her character is just like, we were talking about before, like kind of like the visions that people were having when they were sleeping, and from what I'm gathering from the movie is that Flag and Mother Abigail were kind of going at everybody. Everybody who was alive, they were giving visions to. And based on like kind of like your own inner personality and what you believe is depending on where you're going to go. Because everybody who's been there, like Sinise's character, the doctor, the token black guy in the truck, I mean, they all...
Ossie Davis, who is, by the way, is Ruby Dee, the actress playing Mother Abigail. That's her husband. So the reason he's there.
She must have robbed the cradle there. But anyways, it seemed like everybody was getting visions of that, both of them. Did you get that too? Where it seemed like, because they knew who Flag was, because always like this Flag fella and stuff. So
right.
Yeah, so I think what was going on is I think that once everybody died,
I got that.
They were both throwing visions at everybody, or maybe the God in Devil was, or the God in Flag was, however you want to interpret it.
Well, you know what would have made that more believable is if they had done that in the last part. But all we ever see, like you said, the black and white stuff, you see the bad people get the Flag visions, the good people get the other visions. Larry's the only one that I can remember. He
really didn't even get both, though. He just got like, just Flag in the cornfield, was it, or?
Right, it's just like a flash.
Look like
he didn't even get like the full-on conversation.
Visions where it was like Flag being like, don't listen to old lady. You want to come out here and stuff. This is trying to tempt them in a way. Like there's women, there's wealth, everything you want.
Like
I said last time, he's
Larry,
the id, where she's a super ego.
Yeah. Right, exactly. I mean, that's the thing is like Flag should have appealed to somebody like Larry.
Well, it goes
Larry
back to his character,
star.
how badly it's
or
it's
was
like, dude, you should have made him like a fucking like Tommy Lee Jones type guy or something, not some country bumpkin guy who's got a terrible song.
The funny thing is the way everybody bastardizes that song.
But the song is a bastardization of music.
I mean, Flag does it. Well, I know, but it's funny to me how everybody has a take on it, and it just gets worse and worse. It's kind of like this movie. The further along it goes, the worse it gets.
But let's kind of get back into Nadine and stuff like that. And I see her character as like, it was real interesting because she was kind of going back and forth. Like, I think she wanted to be good, but that temptation was always there to pull her back out of it. And she made a final plea with Larry. And the fact that he could not whip it out at her was the whole downfall of himself and many other people. I mean, she begged him to basically do her. And she wanted, because she knew that if he would basically have sex with her, that Randall Flagg's plan, which I think his plan was to bring an heir, maybe the whole Antichrist thing or something, would be broken. That whole thing would be broken.
Yeah, something like that.
He even says it to her too, like later, it's like, you can do everything but that. That's mine. You need to be a virgin when I meet you and stuff. So she goes up to Larry and she's just like, please just bang me. And he just turns her down. And it was like, I kind of like that though, because once she got turned down, that was the final straw for her. She's like, screw these people, screw it all. I'm going to Flag.
Well, can I tell you how I read her though? Is it not so much the final straw of like, she was more resigned to her fate of like, well, okay, now I know what my destiny is, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's very Kubrickian, the idea of can you decide?
Wouldn't it have been better if Larry kind of more resembled Flag, where he was kind of like, maybe they're both like the bad boys, and that's why maybe she was attracted to this guy, where it was like, he reminds me a lot of him.
I think Larry is supposed to be, and it just doesn't come off that way. No, we said it last time. Rob Lowe was supposed to be Larry. Would it work better if it was Rob Lowe? I could kind of buy that because Rob Lowe is that.
And I think like if they would have got someone like Robert Downey Jr., like we were talking last time, it would have been perfect for it.
Yeah, I would have bought it more. But this guy, Adam Stork, and Jamie Sheridan are nothing. They look nothing alike. They act nothing alike. They're totally different. Not even in the same ballpark.
One has charisma.
It makes for a real uneven
thing. Has as much charisma as a piece of wet toast.
Well, which one have you ever seen again? And the other one, this is all I know he's ever been in. Jamie Sheridan was so good that after he had Bell's palsy, they just wrote it into his character on Law and Order. That's you're good when you have a debilitating disease and problem, and the producers.
Well, I will say this too. I have read a couple issues
it.
of the Stan comic book that Marvel put out, and they make Flag look an awful lot like him. The other characters don't look anything like the characters in the series.
What's the thing? I have seen some of those characterizations. You're right, and I mean they really did it. It's probably the best casting they did.
Well, it's just almost like it. I mean, Tim Curry was a standout. Mm-hmm. It seems like they got a real good knack at casting villains, but everybody else, not so much.
Well, the kids in
I'm talking
the adult counterparts, a little more uneven. Yeah. The kids were fine, but the adults, not so much. I agree, but we're here, and that is what it is. But what do you think of the plot that Flag has here?
What is his plot?
To send Nadine to turn Harold over the edge. I told you, I think it is to have a spy on the inside, and then to have somebody strike a blow at him that he thinks might. With a group that's already fracturing, this might send them completely over the rails. And he knows what we're supposed to know is that Nick is the most important one of all of these people, and then they just kill him off and to never be heard from again, except in one vision later on. Like that. What did you make of the deaf mute who finally learned how to
I don't know. I think the whole thing with like the bomb thing, that was kind of like happenstance. I think that, I don't even realize why I think the only reason she was there was because she was trying to be good. I don't think Flag sent her there. I think she was just there because she really had this internal struggle. And I think that after she kind of met that breaking point, or she realized what her destiny was, that Flag finally took control of her and then used Harold's, happenstance of him just kind of being almost the same thing where, she was going after Larry. She realized it wasn't going to happen. Harold was going after, Molly Ringwald, and he realized it wasn't going to happen. And that he kind of took that event and then turned it into his favor. He was an opportunist there. Because he was going to nuke them. So what was the point of them bombing them? I think he was going to nuke them from the first chapter.
Well, yeah, because that's the whole bit, and we're not talking about him much. But Trash Can Man gets sent on this errand to find the nuclear weapon, and I've always wondered why. And it finally occurred to me this time. It's like this is the Flag is going to launch that at Boulder. That's the point. And what happens to it is the other part of the story. But I mean, I'm with you. I'm like that because of the fact that is his plan, and we both know that's his plan, and it's pretty clear that it is. It makes the dynamite bomb. It just seemed like the actions of a jilted
I think it was just him taking advantage of the situation. Let's just screw all their leaders up. Why to leave them more as a sitting duck if we get rid of these guys? Happenstance. Just he's taken advantage of a situation that kind of fell into his lap right there.
Well, and that's very much like a Satan thing, is to I'm not going to outwardly turn people to do things. I'm just going to use what's already in you to create chaos.
How do you take Harold's turn though? Because when did he exactly turn? Because in the book it's pretty clear when he turns. Because even when he was in Boulder, he wasn't bad. I mean, he was a little jaded about the whole love triangle thing, but he found an identity in the book. He called himself Hawk, if you remember that. Because he kind of became
I do
not like the town sheriff, but kind of like almost like one of the more intellectual people there, where it was kind of like he was smart and yet he was able-bodied. He was taking command. He was taking charge. Excuse me. Of cleaning up the bodies and everything like that. Mm-hmm. In the series, it's not very clear. I mean, we obviously see him, look on as Molly Ringwald and, Gary Sinise bump uglies and everything, but it really isn't clear because also he comes up and he's like, I nominate that all you guys who Mother Abigail wants to be in charge and stuff, and it's just really not clear of when he turns. I mean, he goes and he gets seduced by Nadine, but is that the reason why?
What I think when he turns is when he starts screwing her, because he becomes this misogynistic jerk out of nowhere. He starts building the bomb and he tells her, don't talk to me, woman. And he starts treating her like a whore, and all this stuff. And it's
that doesn't make any sense either, because you figure a guy like that who's been hungry after this girl, and then he gets cock blocked.
He would be laughing at her
he would have been like. He would have been like. I mean, PG cast here, but he would have been pussy whipped, guys. I mean, he would have been like following her orders because he's been so desperate to get some from
That's
Molly
what I mean,
Ringwald, and he doesn't get it, and he's getting some from this girl, and I think he would have just fell over head over heels for her.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's the thing, is Nadine doesn't outwardly tell him, Harold, I want you to kill them all for me. You know, she's as much a pawn in this as anything, and you can see it weighing on her. Like, she hates the fact that she's using him
she should
to
have been Lady
manipulate
Macbeth
for Flag or whatever she's supposed to be doing.
She should have been like, hey, she tried to be good. She tried to hook up with Larry. They shot down her advances. So what she's going to do, she's going to get back at them. And she's going to it is much more like that. But I'm just talking from a serious standpoint.
That's the thing.
That she should have then turned that motivation and then took in this one guy here who was right for the taking, and then basically, gave him into the desires that he was looking for, and then used that as type of like a fuel or like a carrot in front of a donkey for him, where it's like, hey, I gave this to you, you need to do this for me.
She should. You know what she should have been? She should have been much more Jezebel tempting Samson. To let me know, what the strong point is. Like, she should have used him for something, then thrown him by the wayside. As it goes, he sets off the bomb. They ride out of town on motorcycles. He has a wreck, falls down the hill, breaks himself up, and she's like, "See you, Larry," and then "See you, Harold," and then she's gone. And he's left to die on the side of that hill, which is how it happens in the book, and he has a much more interesting death. But he should have been. He should have been like heartbroken and stuff. What was happening?
The woman that he gave his life for, and basically betrayed all his friends. And it doesn't come off like that. It comes just like, they're getting off of there. Plus, dude, wearing like leather and stuff on the crotch rocket, it's not a good look. He should have been driving a Harley, or he should have been in like a motorcycle jacket for the crotch rocket. He was mixing looks up there. He just showed.
He needed tips from the way the guys
he was mixed up. I think it just kind of shows his character how stupid he is. But
well, it's also how uneven all these things are coming together, because they just got too. It's like they've spent so much time doing setup of nothing here that now they're getting into the let's do something.
Dude,
and they're like, oh crap, we don't really have any time to do it.
I used to drive a motorcycle. I used to drive a Harley and stuff like that, and it's like, dude, I haven't seen studs like that ever. That's like that's like something out of like
who I saw
Demolition in WWF.
No. Do you remember the? That's exactly what I was about to say. The last time I saw that, either the Road Warriors or Demolition. Those are the only people I ever saw dressed like that. Everybody I knew that rode motorcycles,
you
have
leather
dress
on,
like
maybe chapped.
Okay, that's not how it goes.
Studs coming out like crazy.
You do not wear the studs. No, unless you're in an Iron Maiden video. Nobody does that. Okay, it's a bad stereotype, and it looks even worse than somebody like Corin Nemec.
Yeah, and that's some S&M stuff there from remember you just never Dodgeball with the S&M group. That's what that's from.
Yes,
so it's just
exactly. It's very S&M. Yes, it's as bad of costume dressing as I've seen in a film, and we've seen some pretty bad stuff.
But that's what I like about the book is after he realizes that it's not going to work out with the Molly Ringwald character, is that he kind of becomes his own man. He becomes his own thing, and he becomes a confident guy. He's got the intellect. He's smarter than 9 out of 10 people in the Boulder community, and he also has, like I said, the physical capabilities, because in the beginning of the book, he's a very heavy, obese guy, and he becomes skinnier and more fit throughout the series. Or throughout the book, and it kind of fits in with him. Like, he's getting all this confidence and stuff. He's put that whole love thing behind him. But in the book, in the series, he's just kind of pathetic. I don't know.
Well,
but as much as we say that, though, he actually has the most interesting arc out of everybody there.
Mm-hmm. Well, he does, but it's still not.
Dude, I'm
good.
trying to
That's
give a
the
little bit of
problem.
credit here, man.
It ends. I know, but part 3 ends with all of that, and with the 4 men being sent on the quest, essentially. With the faux dust in the wind-esque kind of theme going behind them, and they head off on the road. Nothing but what you got on your back right now. So Larry carries his guitar with him. Ralph's got his flannel on. Gary Sinise has got on his leather jacket, and Glenn is wearing his stupid hat.
And they walk
the
off
dog.
hand
and
in
then that's
hand.
it. And they head off. Yeah, they go down the road together, and it's supposed to be this real poignant thing, but it doesn't come off that way. There's one scene where it does later on, but not right here. It's really, because I don't understand what they're going to do. Like, it's not very clear to me what their purpose is. And I realize you want to keep some of that in secret because it's part of the plot, but I don't know. Did you get why they were being sent off at all? It's never clear to me until the end of it what the purpose of those four guys going to stand up the flag was.
I don't understand.
Because it's almost like a test of faith. That's really what it is.
They didn't do a thing, man.
Well, I'm going to tell you what Well, you know what I think it was? Is it's supposed to be that those who are going to be on the side of good can't just say they're going to be on the side of good. They have to be willing to lay down their life for it.
But laying down their life,
three of them
though? Just walking in there and
that's
going, take me. I mean, I don't know. It just seemed kind of like some like weird like Gandhi metaphor here, where it's just like we're going to go there with nonviolence, and our nonviolence and belief in our cause is going to defeat you just by itself.
Well, hold on a minute, though. You know, we talked about the Jesus metaphors here. When Jesus is arrested in the garden, one of his apostles, strikes out and cuts the ear off of one of the soldiers, and Jesus heals the soldier and says,
but
no,
that
that's
soldier
not how this
wasn't
is
Randall
going down.
Flag,
and he goes willingly. No,
these soldiers weren't sitting there going, "We're going to shoot a freaking nuke at you guys." I mean, they're basically trying to shoot a BB gun at a freaking freight train at this point with what their mission is. And I want to even get to the point too. Where
that's the thing.
I don't think that they did anything to defeat Randall Flagg. Randall Flagg defeated Randall Flagg. He did. Okay, so
by
we
his
get
own
Nadine.
pride, right?
I mean, after the whole ridiculous motorcycle accident with probably the worst case of wire foo I've ever seen with the guy. That's terrible. But anyway, she meets up with Randall Flagg.
It was horrible.
And he bones her by a fire. And of course, the best way to romanticize a woman is by doing completely shape-changing things and freaking the shit out of her. But he bangs her and she goes insane. And it's like, for someone who's supposed to be so smart and so suave, it was it's pretty stupid of him to do. Because he basically she had a mental breakdown there. And that was the beginning of his undoing. And then we get further into it where he's got the spies and he figures out about the spies. They kill the black guy, the old black guy, because you got two imbeciles there that kill him.
But that's against his wishes.
But he knows
he doesn't want him killed.
I think for a guy that's so smart, he's got to realize that he's got a bunch of gun-shorting rednecks here. What are they going to do? And then he's got the one girl who's Dana, who's banging Lloyd. And it's just instead of he's just kind of playing back and forth with her and stuff. And it's just I think right there when she killed herself, that was the beginning. That was the downfall of him.
Well, you know what, though? I liked that, though. You talk about somebody who finally does something. I mean, she basically says, well, I may be going down, but it ain't going to be by you. And she gets into a fight with him and sees the only way out is that big piece of glass. She just throws herself on it. I'm like, you go, girl. That was pretty badass.
She's a firecracker. I mean...
Well, that's what I'm saying. She was her and Nadine were way more interesting.
Yeah, and Dana had barely any plot in this thing. You just know that she got sent there.
I know. That's we meet her at the beginning of part 3 when presumably her husband is dying while Stu, of all people, is performing an appendicitis in a subway on him, whatever. And then the next time we see her, she's in lingerie with Lloyd. And that's when we know, she was the spy because they sent the sexy one. So, and I'm like, well, it works, I liked her little stand though. I thought that was good. I was cool with her and the whole bit. And as far as Nadine going crazy, how I've always taken that is when he impregnates her, it's like his seed inside of her drives her insane. And finally, when she's able to get a grip and a moment of clarity, she throws herself off the building. That was pretty cool too. I mean, the two females here have the most, I would say they have the boldest stand-up of anybody against Flagg.
I was thinking with Nadine that I think probably the part that drove her crazy was the fact that she got banged by a demon and he didn't hide it. He was throwing it in her face. But I really like the Dana character. I think she was, for the 5 minutes she was on screen, I really liked her, and I like that, when they figured it out, she wasn't trying to like be coy or anything about it. She's like, no, I'm going to take matters in my own hands. She puts like the freaking, the taxi driver type switchblade thing on her hand. And I think that was really cool, and I love the banter between her and Flag, because Flag's trying to play it coy and stuff like that, like he's going to let her go, and you know that he's not going to let her go, and that he's kind of going back and forth. He's trying to figure out what's going on, what's this other spy out there, because he knows that there's 3 of them. He's able to figure some stuff out, as he was saying, and he was kind of having this nice little banter back and forth, and I thought that was actually probably the best part of part 4, is when this was going.
Oh, easily. The parts he has with Dana and Nadine are the most compelling things.
I even love the 2 when Nadine is. They meet Nadine for the first time, and they're entering the elevator, and she's like, "This is hell, and we're in it," and stuff. Or I mean, that was great. I think she realized after he put his demon seed
in her that it was all over for everybody, and she's not wrong either. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. I'll say the other thing though, and we've complimented those 2 parts as being really outstanding. The other scene that I still like, and it still works for me, even though I know it's coming or whatever, is after the 4 or the 3 are arrested, because we haven't even talked about the fact that Stu got hurt along the way. Glenn, Larry, and Ralph are in prison, and Glenn is being challenged by Flag, and he is, Glenn, the guy we've talked about, the intellectual who didn't buy into all this hocus pocus, really shows off the faith here at this point and says, you can kill me, whatever, it's fine, I don't care, because you're not as good as you think you are. And he calls it out. He said, you're destroying yourself already, you just don't even know it. And so he tells Lloyd to shoot him, and when Lloyd shoots him, I love how Glenn does the whole forgive him, he doesn't know what he's doing thing. And I thought that was really good. And there's a moment right after that where Larry and Ralph clutch hands in the cell and they start saying the prayer together. I thought, finally we get some real moments from these guys. And wouldn't that have been so much more poignant if I had actually cared about any of them to begin with? Yeah,
it's one of the only times where kind of the schmaltzy hokiness actually works.
Exactly. And you know what? Again, it wouldn't feel that way if the rest of this movie wasn't so damn hokey.
Yeah.
But it all is. So it's like, but at that point, I realize we're at the end, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I love the insult though that he gave Lloyd, where it goes, "You don't know what you're doing," and it's like that is that was a really good burn to him. I mean, I don't think it was meant to be kind of in that way, but it's like, it is what it is, and I mean, he's being truthful. Yeah. In a way where it's like, you don't know what you're doing because, you were taken by this guy, but you're also taken because you're a simpleton.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not anything, more than just your base instincts, Lord.
I mean, it's almost like I said, like when when you're a kid and your parents say they're not mad, they're disappointed, how that kind of burns. It was like that same type of insult where it's like, exactly. It wasn't like you asshole or something like that. It was like just a total burn down to the bone. And it's like, you could tell it affected him too. And he's just like, he couldn't really say anything after that and stuff. Shut up, old man, shut up.
If he'd have had more bullets, he would have put him in him, but he shot him 5 times. So that's all he had, and that was it.
Well, even back to the whole Stu part, because when they leave, Mother Abigail kind of gives him her little Yoda vision where she's like, "One will fall along the way." That was a cheat, dude. I'm sorry. It's like, he literally fell. I mean, the way she was kind of trying to show it kind of sounded like maybe someone would have died.
Well, you know how I took that? I was like, one of them is going to betray the rest of them. And I'm going, Larry's going to, turn on him, or Glenn or something. And I'm thinking about the first time I saw this and having not read it at the time I first saw this, didn't know how it went. And then I began to wonder, I was like, why does Stu get to live? Is it just so he can be daddy to Franz and his baby?
Because he can't find his proper footing and probably one of the worst falls in cinematic history.
Oh, God,
dude, it is so bad. He's on top, hey guys, I made it. And all of a sudden it's like a cut, and he's like, oh, I'm falling, and it's terrible. It's not believable at all how he falls. No. It's just like, I would have sat there if he would have fell down at the bottom and be like, dude, you purposely did that.
And I love how it's Glenn that's like, no, we got to leave him behind, guys. Remember, Yoda or Mother Abigail told us one would fall.
They have the same skin texture, okay?
They really do. I've never thought of it till you said that, but yes, all she needed to do was talk backwards, and then we would have had it.
And she's the same height, too.
Ruby D will throw a curse on you, sir. But anyway, I don't know. Like, my whole thing about this is I knew somebody had to survive so somebody can tell the tale, right? And it makes some sense that it's Stu because in a lot of ways he's the first one of these people that we're introduced to with any length of time at all.
Well, he's the main character.
Well, is he? That's the thing. Like, in the book, maybe. In this, I don't know. Because he's largely forgotten for a chunk of this.
I'm just going back to the first chapter. Always kind of the main point when he's in the military holding and stuff. I think was supposed to be the main character.
Okay, well, they do this is then the example again of when the cast is too big, there's too many people that it's hard to tell. Like, unlike it, where it's clear Bill is the main guy the whole time through it, they switch focus too many times to these other people. So I have a hard time accepting Stu as the main force of things, even though they throw him up there many times that he will be the main driving force of everything. It just doesn't play. I don't know. I don't buy it.
Well, it doesn't play because the portrayal in the second half isn't as good as it was in the first half, and I think a lot of that's to do with the people he's playing off of.
Oh, I agree. And they don't give him a lot to do. There's not much other than fall down that hill and make that one speech and lead the national
But then
anthem.
again, no one does anything. No one does anything. I mean, we're talking.
It is a lot of walking and standing around. I mean, it's very Lord of the Rings earlier.
Well, at least Lord of the Rings, you
way.
got battles and some giant freaking eagles. I mean, here it's nothing, and that's what I wonder too. Even at the end, I mean, let's just get right to it. I mean, you got the two guys, and they're left, and they put them on crosses. Of course, they put them on crosses, and they're going to burn them. Is that what they're going to do?
No, they're going to draw and quarter them in public.
What does that mean?
That means you're going to pull somebody into 5 directions, cut their head, arms, and legs, and torso from each other, and then scatter them. That's what drawing and quartering is.
Wow, that's even worse. So, anyways, I'm just again, it's like everybody's there, like yes, let's do this.
It's public execution.
But
it's the whole idea.
But why? What is public execution going to do here? Because again, you haven't showed anything within this community in Las Vegas. So again, it goes back to everybody here is evil. Everybody in Boulder is really good. So are we just take that these people here are just pure evil, and they just want to see blood? They just want to see.
No. Here's the thing: they've set up that there's a group of people among the flag followers who have started to kind of bug out and just want to be left alone. They don't want to be with Flag. They don't want to be with Abigail. They just want to be agnostic and go away. And what Flag is saying is like, you will choose me or you will choose death. And it's supposed to be this real autocratic.
It's very, very light,
but it's poorly done. That's the problem. It's very thin and poorly done, and that's why it doesn't play right. Because I don't understand what's the purpose of the public execution either. I mean, again, in the book, it's much clearer. Here, it's just like it's another show of force for no reason.
It would have been so much better if Flag would have been there and been more of like because you never see him addressing the people,
right?
You never see him out there as like a dictator or someone who's making speeches.
Well, same thing, though. We never saw Mother Abigail really address the people. We saw her let people come up on her porch and get some lemonade. It's the same thing. Both of these leaders are really weak.
But I can take it from her side because her side's supposed to be the good side. She's supposed to be like the Jesus character who she's going to have her people do the talking for her, Where he's supposed to be like the Hitler. He's supposed to be the Stalin type guy who's taking command. And wouldn't it have played so much better if you would have had people who have lost faith in him, where it's like, dude, this guy's completely insane. And he basically makes a big speech to all these people saying, hey, you can leave, but you leave, you're going to die.
Well, that's kind of what he does.
Here we're saying... But he doesn't do it in the movie, though, because you never see him addressing anybody
until the very end.
Lloyd, Trash Can Man, Rat Man, God, that's the worst character in the world, and maybe a couple other characters. I would have thought it would have been so much better if he would have actually made a speech to these people and say, you guys leave. Those people in Boulder are going to get you. I'm the only thing here that's protecting you people. The only thing protecting you is inside this city right now because they're afraid to come in here because of who we are. But you go out there and you guys are going to be left and they're going to kill you. Try to make it seem like the people in Boulder are the bad people. That's what he should have been doing the whole time. And these people would have fell into his whole charisma, fell into his whole scheme of things. But they never have that here. It just seems like everybody here is just, again, paint. It's just dry paint here.
Well, I don't disagree.
This part's dark, this part's
You know
light.
what? They could have made a great part out of that, but instead we spend the whole time with people walking around staring at each other. That's,
Or hugging in the middle of a church.
There's just a lot of nothing that's happening. You're right. But the final end of all of it is Trash rolls up with the nuclear weapon, and I suppose it's supposed to be the hand of God that shows up and the voice of Mother Abigail, and that sets up. See,
I took it as Mother Abigail that did. I never took it that.
Well, I think it's clearer in the I'm projecting a bit.
Oh, in the book,
yeah, I'm projecting that in the book
God.
that was the hand of God that did that. You're right. In the film, it's like this is Mother Abigail's ghost setting off the bomb.
In the book, they clearly say it's God. In the book, they clearly say it's God. And here, it comes off like it's Mother Abigail. And I just it's like, you're coming home. You're coming home. It's coming off like Tangia and freaking Poltergeist.
Well, the thing is, though, we're supposed to believe that it destroys everything. Hold on. We're supposed to believe it destroys everybody. But Flag clearly turns into the crow and flies away before it goes off. And I'm like, well, okay, so where does he go? Because we never see him again. Ever. Like, nothing. And I'm like, well, that was really, it would have been different if he was just standing there kind of searing and then boom, we see the mushroom cloud. That would have been more tension. The fact that they do that animation where he turns into the bird and flies, it's like, well, crap, he got away. So Vegas gets nuked. So what?
Yes, a dun dun dun. Is he dead? But yeah, I mean, in the book they make it clear what happens to him and that he doesn't die.
Right.
And that he goes to a different area and it's going to start to stuff all over again with a different group of survivors. But yeah, again, it's just poorly executed. What was the purpose of not showing what happened to him? He's the big bad. I mean, this would be like, in Star Wars if they don't show what happens to Vader. I mean, it's just like you have to know what happens to this guy. And they completely drop the ball here, like so much other stuff. And I don't know. Again, what did these guys do to cause this? Trash Can Man did this. It was Randall Flagg's own pride, his arrogance, and his failings that caused him and his people to be killed.
That's flat out what Dana and Nadine lay on him. And Glenn, to some respect, too. They all lay that on him.
But what was the point of them going? Again, what was the point of Mother Abigail sending
I guess
them?
to tell him that? I don't know.
This would have happened anyways.
Them going gets him to... I'm just going to defend the film's own logic for just a minute here, okay? Them going gets him to go into this whole public display of execution for no reason at all, which causes him to slip on his own pride banana, and it gives the chance for Mother Abigail, God, whatever, to set that nuke off before he gets a chance to launch it back at Boulder, which we think was his plan anyway, right? That's what it does, is it distracts him enough to do it. So their death is so he is distracted enough that they can take it out. But again, he doesn't die, so it seems really, perfunctory. But the problem with it is, Nick, this happens and there's 20 minutes left to go. There's that whole coda.
Well, even when that happens, though, man, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that because it's like, it was a freaking nuke, man. This wasn't like, a bunch of TNT or something where it was like a controlled explosion and they had this little get-together, and it's only because they had this get-together that they were all able to be killed. No, it was a freaking nuke. I mean, the Trash Can Man was going to bring that into Vegas no matter what.
But have you been to Vegas? There's absolutely nothing around it for hundreds of miles. You could set a nuke off.
Yeah, they're going to be in the city, and he would have brought that in there, and they would have all been dead.
You think?
I mean, they definitely would have happened. There was no... What those four guys did not influence Trash Can Man at all to bring that in there. He was going to do that anyways.
No, he was bringing that back because Flag wanted him to go get it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's bringing that back no matter what.
Right, but what if Flag wasn't trying to publicly execute people who don't matter? Wouldn't he have been like, "Oh yeah, thanks for my nuke," and then lobbed it at Boulder? That's what I'm saying.
But the guys there didn't set it off. It wasn't like they got out of the chains and went and set this nuke off and self-sacrificed themselves. It was the hands of God or Mother Abigail, or however you want to see it, that did it. And it's like, why couldn't the deity being have done this anyway without those guys being there?
Well, and now you've hit on something. If you're going to introduce that kind of power into this type of story or whatever, that is the ultimate problem.
It is a cheat.
Well, it's the ultimate problem. It's like, well, why don't you just solve this? Why did you allow the superflu to kill everybody anyway? That you start asking those questions, you've now put way too much burden on that plot device.
Yeah, is it to separate the truly good from the truly evil? Because I'm sure Molly Ringwald's dad seemed like a really good guy. Why did he have to die?
Well, Yeah, we're not even going to get into that. Who got chosen and all that. That's a whole other discussion. But
why couldn't, if that was the plan all the time, that this nuke was going to go into there and that God was going to take it up and like snap his fingers and make it blow up, why did they have to be there with it? Why? Was it that their being there gave them a little bit of extra power to do it? Then you're going against the whole thing of it being God, that God's all powerful. So I don't know. It felt really, really ham-handed.
It is supposed to be the ultimate show of faith that those guys go up there knowing they're going to die, but for dying for the right reasons. And it doesn't. I'm not saying it works. I'm saying that's what the movie wants us to accept.
So if these two people didn't go there to die, then God would have been like, all right, well, they're going to shoot a nuke at you guys, and the world's going to be run by Randall Flagg and the Vegas people. I mean, that's just something. It's really hard to swallow.
Well, it's also, again, when you have theology getting adapted by people that don't really know what the story is either too, this is like what you just said is exactly how God would let it go. Like, you want the earth? Fine.
See, what would have been better is if they would have went there and maybe the old man dying or something influenced Lloyd to be the turncoat.
Right. Like if Lloyd had made the turn there and flipped the switch. I'm with you. I wanted Lloyd to turn around and set the nuke off. I figured it would
have had to be him. I mean, he would have been like the reverse Judas here, where he sees these guys sacrifice himself and he goes, my God, I'm on the wrong side. And you know what? We're all screwed. We are all beyond forgiveness here. We have to end this here. And that he does it somehow, that he somehow sets off the nuke, or somebody in that position does. The fact that it's just like, oh, you're here, we're going to have this happen here, and you guys are going to die. It's just so random, and it's a cheat. I mean, it is a complete cheat, because it goes against...
It is, and I say this, too, to get into that last coda that I do want to talk about, is this is what happens so often in these Stephen King things, is that the big final thing is such a letdown from everything that's built up to it, and then they tag on these 20 minutes of coda of, Stu has the flu, and Tom finds him, and then he goes back, and his baby's okay, and they name it after Abigail, and they don't know if humanity can be any better the second time around, or the third time if you count the flood. So, I mean, really, I'm looking at this the same way I looked at the end of It when they killed the giant spider. Remember how big of a letdown that was? Knowing that there was no way they could have done the ritual of Chud that's in the book, fine. But the ultimate letdown of that movie was that the final battle was a real there was nothing to it, right? They beat the crap out of an animatronic spider. In the shadows of that. They didn't even show it on the screen. And the ultimate letdown of this is a nuke goes off that we're not entirely certain who set it off, one, and two, we don't really understand why it had to go down that way. And the other thing is the way Tom and Stu react to that nuke. Like, they look like they're going, oh, is that a flashlight in the distance? I'm sorry, if a nuclear bomb goes off, you would know it. The way they react to it is that the cloud appears on their faces, and they're like...
The fact that they're able to walk there. I mean, Boulder and Vegas are not... I mean, they're far apart, but they walk there, and from what I got, that Stu made most of the journey there. So
right, like he was close enough to
he was close enough where he would have got radiation sickness or radiation poison. He would have came back.
Yes. Well, that's what I thought at first. Like, he's sick with the flu, and I'm like... That doesn't make any sense. He's going to have radiation poisoning, too.
I don't know. It's just, even when we get into that, too, it's like, okay, well, Tom finds him. I mean, convenient that he finds him.
Well, no, Tom is directed to find him by
that's
Nick.
True. That's true. Yeah,
the spectral of Nick, who finally can talk in the afterlife, which is fine. I get that. But why does Stu get the flu after he breaks his leg?
I didn't take it that he got the flu. I think he got sick from his infection and his broken leg.
Well, I thought that too, but like he goes on this whole thing with talking to Kojak about, it's like, watching Tom Hanks talk to Wilson in Castaway. He's like, oh, I'm going to die of the flu after all. I'm like, well, how the hell did you get, wouldn't the flu have dissipated? Like, viruses need organisms to grow on when everybody
the flu would have been gone at that point.
Yeah, it would have been gone. Everybody's dead. Everybody that's alive is immune to it. You don't all of a sudden become not immune to it. The virus would have been dead.
Yeah, I took it that he was getting like some type of infection from his broken leg because it wasn't properly treated.
Right, that would make sense. Like, but they mention it so many times that you're led to believe
like walnuts.
That he's got the flu. I'm like, that doesn't play right at all. And the other thing is they undercut the whole tension of the baby, right? Like, the whole point of the fear of the baby is not, can we be good parents in this world? It's what if the baby, is not immune to this flu, is that the end of humanity? To which, to me, doesn't make any sense because, like we just said, the virus would have been long dead by now. There's no way, and especially since we're led to believe that Stu got her pregnant after the virus has hit. So it's like two, immune parents would not produce an immune child. That doesn't make any sense.
See, it's done so much better in the book because when she's got pregnant by a guy who wasn't immune to it, that they were
exactly
afraid, because they didn't have medical knowledge or really any type of knowledge on how this virus, if it would even be around. They didn't know, so they were just nervous that, hey, I'm bringing a child into this world that was fathered by a guy who wasn't immune to it. Who's he going to take after?
Yeah, I mean, that would have made, again, that was a bad choice I'm not saying they needed another character in this thing. We could have gone with she has been pregnant the whole time, and that she, it's telling Stu, like, why would you want somebody like me? I'm already pregnant, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, I'll be a father to your kid, and that's, why they hook up or whatever. That would have been, that's all they would have needed to do. And they could have just thrown that in there and let Harold think. Well,
they didn't want to make Molly Ringwald seem like a, they didn't want to make her seem like that type of girl in this. They want to make her seem wholesome and everything. And, she only...
It was a bad choice. I want to say it's a poor... I mean, I know you have to pare characters down when you adapt books to films, but that was a poor choice.
Well, dude, I mean, look at everything in the movie, though. Everything is goody-goody. So she's got to be goody-goody. I mean, the way she would have went up to Mother Abigail and that child was born... Oh, I don't know. I guess they weren't married anyways. I'm surprised she didn't turn her away and go, "Be out of here, you skank."
I think they were done with judging people at that point. It was,
No, she wasn't, because she shot down
Indians, and you were dreaming of me. This is true. So, well, I think it's time for us to get final judgment and thoughts and popcorn ratings for the entire miniseries here of The Stand. So, Nick, what's your popcorn rating for this?
6 hours of my life, Jay. 6 hours. That's what this was. A lot of the other stuff, Maximum Overdrive, 90 minutes, Christine, 90 minutes or so. This was 6 hours. 6 hours I invested in this stuff, invested in these characters, invested in this story. And I really like the story. I like the basis of the story. I love the book. I love exactly what's going on here. But this is almost like, a 4-year-old finding his dad's gun, the way that these people took this book. And yeah, it might be Stephen King himself who wrote a lot of this stuff, all right? We learned that he shouldn't be around movies. And it just was handled in a way that it should not be handled. And overall, just 6 hours of my life, I feel like I kind of just wasted in a way by watching this stuff. So I got to give this a medium popcorn. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not the worst thing we've seen. But it's far from the best. It's no It, and that's not saying a lot. I mean, I don't know. It's a medium popcorn. It's just a plain medium popcorn. There's no extra anything on this stuff. It's if you haven't seen it, check it out, because it might take you to read the book. But if you have seen this in the past and you got good memories of it, just leave it where it is, because going back and revisiting it, the movie just reeks of made-for-TV crap. And the movie took anything that was complex about the book and just made it purely black and white. It's not very good.
I agree with you that this is the definition of medium popcorn. Purely mediocre. Not bad, but not really outstanding either in any way. And in a lot of ways, it's very much like most of this cast. They're just okay. Some of them have brighter moments than others. We've called those out. But most of it is just okay. And I'm like you, the book and the story is so much more intriguing. And if you have seen this before, I'm with you. Don't go revisit it. Just let your memories of it be what it is, and go read the book again. If you've never seen it, but you've read the book or haven't, hopefully you'll read the book, and then if you watch this, you can have some fun with it. But it is very medium popcorn. And you talk about 6 hours. I want everyone to know this was your idea. We were not going to do this one. But then when we started moving pieces around, decided to not do Carrie, and we didn't want to do Creepshow anymore, you're like, we should do The Stand. It's important. We need to do it. And I said, okay, yes, we will do The Stand again. So you're a victim. You're just like Randall Flagg. You're a victim of your own pride, sir.
Well, in my defense, man, this is the quintessential Stephen King book. And
no, you're right.
Then this was the quintessential Stephen King miniseries.
Well, here's the thing: is like in the way we structured this series, because there was no way we were doing every Stephen King adaptation that's ever been. There's just too many of them.
Yeah, we didn't do any of the good ones.
yeah, I noticed that. Well, no, take that back. We did The Shining, which is we started with probably the best.
We started off high.
We did, and then in the middle we did It, which we both really liked, and then we found morsels along the way. We both enjoyed Pet Sematary for what it was, and I liked Christine more than you, but it was still good, and we found some kitschy fun along the way. I mean, you had Graveyard Shift, that was one you liked. I liked Silver Bullet. We both hated Maximum Overdrive, but it was fun to make fun of, and now we get to this thing, and I feel like we had a beginning, middle, and an end, and it's funny that we ended with this one, because it's something I want to talk about now, is sort of thoughts on Stephen King stuff. And we've had this conversation offline. It's now time to have it on the podcast. This is my biggest complaint about Stephen King stuff, is he cannot stick the landing. He can do the setup. He can make the middle really cool. But in the end, he always ends on a flutter. I have never ended one of his books or one of his movies where I felt completely satisfied with what I got. It always seems to just miss somewhere in the end. He just strikes out in the ninth. And I don't know what it is about that. And I wanted to throw that to you and see if you felt the same way or if you disagreed.
God, I really feel that our retrospective, or selective retrospective, really kind of nails Stephen King's movies and a lot of his literary work as a whole, because it started off strong and really ended kind of bad. I mean, we start off with something like The Shining and end with something as meddling as The Stand, and yeah, I mean, anything that really was a strong book for him, besides, maybe something like The Shining and stuff, which really wasn't a long novel like he's been writing now, but I really feel that Stephen King, as an author, really works best in the short story genre. I mean, I realize I have all his short story books, and I love his short stories, because a lot of times with the short stories, you can just kind of leave it open-ended. Whereas if you read something for 800, 900, 1,000 pages, you can't leave it open-ended at the end, because you've got someone who's invested weeks, maybe months into a book. And I just feel like that aspect of Stephen King, the fact that he can't nail an ending, is almost like they take that aspect of his writing and then make that into a lot of his works, is that they just can't nail anything in these. I mean, I don't know if it's just because the way the words translate onto a visual medium or really what. I mean, The Shining was the only standout of this whole series, and I went into this retrospective really not even liking The Shining. I remember seeing it a long time ago and didn't really care for it, and a lot of these other movies that I thought I liked, turned out I really didn't care for them when I'm, rewatching them, I guess, now with my more cynical or mature eyes, however you want to see it, and I don't know, I just really feel that his works, besides a lot of the Darabont stuff, really has not been done properly, and I really kind of hope that in the future we get some better adaptations. I know right now that Beneath the Dome's going on right now on CBS, and I have not checked that out yet.
Right.
And I've heard good things about it, so I'm kind of eager to check that out, but I'm also kind of hesitant based on a lot of our past viewing experiences during this.
I watched the first 2 episodes of it, and I haven't gone back to it because I began to feel the same way I feel about this and so many other things. It's like, it's just, this isn't leading anywhere. And it was meddling, So, you say the thing about The Shining that it stands out and stuff. I want to say this. The reason The Shining holds up and stands out is for 2 reasons. Jack Nicholson and Stanley Kubrick. Otherwise, if you really want to see what Stephen King thinks The Shining should be, go watch the Steven Weber Stephen King television version of it, and then you'll see. And the only thing that's right about that wasn't so right about the first one is Rebecca De Mornay. She looks more like what Wendy's supposed to be like than Shelley Duvall ever would. But other than that, everything about the Kubrick Shining buries that TV miniseries, and pretty well buries anything else. The only other one I would hold up remotely close in terms of tension that works is Christine, but that's because I love Carpenter. And I'm willing to give that more of a pass, and I actually will lay a lot of that is because Carpenter's good, not because Stephen King can hold tension.
You're comparing Shelley Duvall to Rebecca De Mornay.
No, not at all.
No, I'm saying that's like kind of...
One is a much better actress, one is much prettier.
Yeah, that's like kind of comparing like a Gremlin to a Ferrari there.
And but again, the adaptations as they go, the reason that one is good, really what I'm getting at is that was Nicholson and Kubrick more than I would say King influence. Because as you said before, when he has his hands in this stuff, it always gets screwed.
Well, let's be honest here with a lot of this stuff. I think a lot, like stuff like The Shining, Kubrick took control of that. Right. Like Stephen King, didn't have the clout he had back then, but he also, even if he did, he wasn't going to be able to take any control from a guy like Kubrick. Kubrick was very much in control of everything he did. He needed complete power when he was creating a film. Whereas I think the other films, you'll notice that when the director or screenwriter or whoever comes in, it's either Stephen King helping writing it or directing it with something like Maximum Overdrive, or that King has some bit of power over these people where he's able to influence them. And I think Stephen King has a very great literary mind, but doesn't have a great visual mind as far as, adapting his own work into a visual medium like this. And I just think that's a lot of what's happened with a lot of these films later is like you get lesser and lesser directors directing them. And I think it's all because Stephen King can have power over these people. He can kind of tell them or lead them in the way it is. I mean, you obviously have the exception with the Darabont stuff, and I think that's because Darabont's a little bit of a different breed there. Darabont's an old-school Hollywood guy. He's been around the game for a long time. And Darabont is, before a director, he's a writer. He's a screenwriter, and where these other guys, they're all directors for hires. I mean, whether it's, from a movie like, Graveyard Shift or, Silver Bullet to a miniseries like The Stand or It, those guys are just directors for hire. They're not guys you're ever going to see at the Academy Awards. They're not ever going to see guys you're going to see in the running for a big tentpole movie. They're directors for hires, and there's a reason for that. And I think it really makes the work, these movies suffer because of it.
I can't disagree with anything you're saying. And that's why I say it's been interesting to revisit this, because I went into this going, it's going to be really cool to, one of the masters of horror, Stephen King, and all this stuff, and get into some of these broader pictures of what he gets. And I think we've pointed out and done a good job of pointing out a lot of the tropes that he uses along the way. But largely, this has been really eye-opening for me, and I'm curious now to have conversations with some of our fans, either on Facebook or, Twitter, things like that, about, why is it people keep going back to the well for this guy when the results are largely middling? And I think I can answer that is that they're not so awful all the time that there's no profit to be made in them. There's no ratings. There's no, draw to it, but they're also not terribly memorable. Like, I think my memories of Stephen King stuff are much stronger than the actual stuff when going back to revisit it. And that's curious to think about, because we're heading into the fall here. There's the Carrie remake coming out. All things from the trailers, that new one looks really cool, and the studio believed in it so much they moved it out of the dumping grounds of February and March and put it in October. So clearly they think it's got something. I'm curious to see how that one goes, even though we won't be covering it here. Of course, folks, you can also catch our other podcasts, The Art of Slaying, our Buffy the Vampire Slayer retrospective, and The Fabish Factor, the general movie discussion podcast. All of those at continuousplaypodcast.com. Just click the link of your choice, either the film strip, Fabish Factor, or the Buffy logo there, and you can find the podcast you're looking for. You can find links to our social media, Facebook and Twitter pages there. Hook up with us. Let us know if you think more of Stephen King or less of him even than we do. Let us know what you think of the episodes and the reviews. Leave us a review on iTunes. It helps other folks find the podcast. Until next time, for Nick, I'm Jay. Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Thanks for listening to Film Strip.
Next time I yell, friend, you're going to pay attention, I guarantee it.
Visit our website, continuousplaypodcast.com, for more reviews and episodes.
Come see you and all your friends.
All content used or discussed in this podcast are the property of their respective owners and used under the Fair Use Act, Section 504C2, Title 17.